Hello everyone, welcome back to your daily dose of science with the Ashland Museum of Science. Today is National Apple Pie Day, and what's a better way to celebrate than to learn how to make an apple pie and some of the science that goes with it. So we're going to walk you through how to make an apple pie. My mom's going to help me out because she's the only person I know in my house who can make a pie because she probably makes a dozen a year. So we're starting off with peeling and slicing our apples. We use a fancy peeler in my house that makes the thin slices, but you can just hand peel, core, and slice them into thin pieces. Now it's important that your apples are thin. If you have chunks of apples in your pie, they're going to settle all into the air pockets as they heat up and soften. So making them nice and thin and laying them on top of each other prevents them from settling as much, and you'll have less space between your crust and pie filling. So we're going to break up our apples into smaller pieces so they're not just all circular, and we're going to start making our filling. So with our filling, we're going to add sugar and different spices to the sliced apples so that they can kind of marinate before they go into the pie. We used about 1/3 cup of sugar, but these apples are sweeter because we used Golden Delicious. So you might need to use more sugar than that if you use tart apples. And then we also add our cinnamon and our nutmeg, and then we add some flour. So flour seems kind of weird, but it actually helps thicken up the juices that come from the apples in your pie. It keeps the crust from getting soggy on the bottom as the juices flow out of the apples. So you kind of get this nice apple gravy in your apple pie. So we're stirring up all of those ingredients together so that they're nice and incorporated, and then we're just going to pour them over our apples. Now we're going to stir those up and let them sit for a bit while we work on the next part of our pie. So we're going to make the crust now. So you're going to need flour, butter, sugar, and some salt. You're going to slice up butter into your dry ingredients. Don't ever cut into your hand like this. I told my mother never to do that because you could accidentally hurt yourself. So always make sure you're cutting on a counter. So we're adding in slices of butter, and then we are mashing it all together into the flour and sugar and salt mixture until we get kind of a nice breadcrumb texture. Once you have that, you know that your butter is fully incorporated into all of your dry ingredients, making a really nice start to a crust. So when your crust kind of looks like that, you see little bits and like kind of breadcrumbs, you're going to add your ice water to the mixture. We added about 4 tablespoons worth of ice water. And the reason why you want to use ice water, like water that has had ice cubes in it, don't put the ice cubes, but just the water. You're going to put that in there because it actually prevents the butter from melting as quickly. So this keeps your crust nice and flaky when you do finally bake it, and allows for really nice crust without being overly kind of thin from all the melted butter. So we start kneading the crust up into a nice ball, and then we are going to separate that out so that we can start rolling it out. Alright, so now our crust is kind of a nice ball, all nice and stuck together. So we're going to split it in to 2 parts, and then we're going to start rolling it out. So you add flour to your surface to prevent sticking, start pressing it down, and then you start rolling it out. So this can take a pretty long time to do, so you're going to be kind of patient, roll it out, add flour so it doesn't stick, and then just continue that process until you get a nice, large, thin piece of dough to add to the bottom of your pie plate. So now we're folding up our dough so that it's easy to lift off of our cutting board surface here, and then we will set it into our pie plate and then adjust it so it fits and covers all of the bottom and all of the sides really nicely. You might have to fix some holes when you do this if your crust got too thin in some spots, and then we're just going to press it down, maybe remove some extra, and get ready to add our apples. Alright, so we're just going to pour our apples into the pan and try and make sure they stay as flat as possible when we're putting them in there. So we kind of get these layers without tons of air pockets like we talked about before. So the lack of space in between the apples means that your pie will stay thicker and you won't have a big gap between your apples and crust when it's done baking. So we're just going to kind of press down our apples again, making sure that there's no big air pockets, and then we're going to add some butter to the pie while my mom rolls out the top of the crust to finish it off. So I just take about 2 tablespoons of butter off the stick, then I'm going to take that butter and I'm going to chop it into smaller pieces. So the smaller pieces of butter are really important for preventing the crust on top from getting really thick and chewy, because when water mixes with the flour in the crust, in the top of the crust, it starts something called gluten formation, which just really thickens the crust and makes it a lot chewier. And by adding butter, we're creating air pockets, and we're adding fat that prevents that gluten formation from happening. So this keeps that crust nice and kind of flaky and easy to eat. Alright, so now we're just going to fold up that crust again and get ready to add it on top of our pie to finish up. Now we're going to unfold it nice and carefully. We have a little bit of stuff breaking right now, but we'll just repair that all as we fix up the pie. So now my mom's just removing some of the excess as well as pinching together the top and bottom crust so that it seals up the edges and we don't get any juice or apples leaking from the side. And then she just kind of adds some little dips and stuff to the crust so that it looks a little fancier and to again seal up any holes. This is also when you'd add some steam vents to allow the excess water vapor to leave the pie so it doesn't swell up a whole lot. Then we're gonna get ready to put it in the oven by adding a little pie ring, as you can see right there, to prevent the crust on the edges from getting too brown too quickly and potentially burning. So we'll set a timer for about 45 minutes, let it bake, and then we'll come back, take the pie ring off, let it bake for a few more minutes, and then we'll be all done. And now it's time for our finished pie to come out of the oven. So here is our finished National Apple Pie Day apple pie. Looks very good. I'm excited to have a bite, and I'm glad we got to learn some science today. Thanks so much for watching.